Good morning. It's good to be with you on this wonderful Friday. I hope you've had a great week. I know I'm looking forward to a good weekend. My kids, Thomas, he has 7A band competition tomorrow. So we look forward to going over to Northwest Rankin and watch Germantown compete for the 7A championship. I'm so proud of those kids and all the hard work they put into it. I played football my whole life, and I tell people all the time that band kids work a lot harder than I ever did when I played football. So today we're going to, so I hope whatever you have planned this weekend, it's a wonderful weekend. If you're in the Madison area, we'd love to have you worship with us at St. Matthew's United Methodist Church Sunday morning at 8:30 or 11. At 11, we have a traditional and a contemporary service. So we'd love to have you worship with us if you're in the area. Today we're going to pick up with Acts chapter 21. Paul gets to Jerusalem. Acts 21, verse 17. We're going to read 17 through verse 16. Chapter 21, 17 through 16. When we arrived in Jerusalem, the brothers welcomed us warmly. The next day, Paul went with us to visit James and the elders who were present. After greeting them, he related one by one the things that God had done among the Gentiles through his ministry. When they had heard it, they praised God. They said to him, "You see, brother, how many thousands of believers there are among the Jews, and they are all zealous for the law. They've been told about you that you teach all the Jews living among the Gentiles to forsake Moses, and that you tell them not to circumcise their children or observe the customs. What is to be done? They will certainly hear that you have come. So do what we tell you to do. We have 4 men who are under a vow. Join these men, go through the rite of purification with them, and pay for the shaving of their heads. Thus all will know that there is nothing in what you have been told about you, what they have been told about you, but that you yourself observe and guard the law. But for the Gentiles who have become believers, we have sent a letter with our judgment that they should abstain from what has been sacrificed to idols, and from blood, and that which is strangled from fornication." And then Paul took them in, and the next day, having purified himself, he entered the temple with them, making public the completion of the days of purification when the sacrifice would be made for each of them. Okay, so this is that constant battle you see in the early days of the church. What is the requirement of the law? What are the Gentile believers supposed to do with the traditions and the teachings of the law? We have seen it over and over throughout the book of Acts. You will see it, especially when you read Galatians. When you read Galatians, you see this as a constant struggle for the church. Because remember, the first generation of Christians were Jews. They had lived their whole life as Jews. Remember Peter earlier when he had the vision with the clean and the unclean animals, and the Lord tells him to rise, kill, and eat. And he says, "Lord, I can't eat any of this. I've never eaten anything unclean in my life. I can't do this." And the Lord says, "Don't call anything unclean that I've made clean." So we see this constant battle. And so Paul had been telling the Gentiles that they must not first become Jewish. And so it says here, verse 25, said, "For the Gentiles who have become believers, we have sent a letter with our judgment." That's the old, remember a few, I guess probably months back now, we were in Acts 15, how the apostles sent that letter to all the churches saying, "This is what we ask of Gentiles. You don't have to be circumcised. We just ask that you do these things, food sacrificed to idols, strangling, blood, fornication, these things. Just live this way. But we don't insist that you carry out the customs of Moses." And so they asked Paul here to do something. He was not required to do this. He didn't have to. Verse 24, join these men, go through the rite of purification with them, and pay for the shaving of their heads. Thus we will all know that there's nothing in what they have been told about you, but you yourself observe and guard the law. Paul didn't have to do that. Paul was under no obligation to do that. Rite of purification, shaving of your head, it didn't matter. It didn't make a difference one way or another. And that's why Paul did it, because it didn't make a difference one way or another. Remember how we looked at Paul's preaching? When he was preaching to a Jewish audience, he would always quote the law. He would always say, let's go to the law and start hearing and work to Jesus. But then when he preached in Athens, he didn't quote the law. In fact, he quoted the Greek philosophers and the Greek poets. He quoted to them what they needed to hear to understand the gospel. So Paul knew that he was under no obligation to do these things. But Paul also knew that exercising that right, that freedom, if you will, to do that, would have just thrown the church into chaos and into division when it wasn't a kingdom issue. These Jewish believers were going to always, by and large, continue to keep the law because it's what they'd always done. It's what they knew. It's what they were raised doing. It was their traditions, and they saw the beauty in it. And they also saw that Jesus Christ was the fulfillment of it. So Jesus wasn't against the law, as we see in Matthew 6 and 5 and 6 and 7, the Sermon on the Mount, where Jesus said, I did not come to destroy the law, but I came to fulfill it. So these these Jewish believers understood that Jesus Christ was not pitted against the law, but that Jesus Christ was the fulfillment of the law. So they would say that in keeping the law, they were feeling drawn closer to Jesus, and were also pointing others to Jesus. But that law was the method by which they lived. And I think this is an important lesson for us today. It's very easy for us to mistake the means for the end. What I mean by that is this. What I want for everyone is an experience with Jesus. That's what I want. In worship, in service, in reading the word, that's what I want for everybody, is for everybody to experience Jesus, to know his saving, his justifying, his sanctifying grace. That's what I know. And so I have a means. That's the end. The end is knowing Jesus. Now, I have a means by which I do that. The means by which I do that is my devotional life, which is very regimented. I'm a United Methodist. That's the way I do it. I like worship a certain way. That's how I experience Jesus. And what I want for you is for you to experience Jesus. That is the end that I want for you. But it's easy for me and for you and for others to mistake the means by which I experience Jesus for the experience of Jesus himself. So to me, it doesn't matter the method of your devotional life. It doesn't matter. It is not important to me. That is the means by which you experience Jesus. Whatever works for you is what works. I don't care if you do your devotional life like I do. As long as you experience Jesus. I don't care. It doesn't matter to me if you worship like I do. As long as you experience Jesus. It doesn't matter to me if you pray like I do. As long as you experience Jesus. What matters is the ends. Where we're going, what we're accomplishing, what we're experiencing. That's what matters, is the ends. But it's so easy for us to mistake the means by which we do that for the ends that we are achieving. Paul here understood that, you know what, guys? Shave my head, whatever, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And if I need to publicly do these things to allow others to know peace and unity in the church, then fine. That's what I'll do. That's what I'll do. It doesn't matter, because what matters is the unity of the church. What matters is more folks knowing Jesus. What matters is the church growing and people becoming disciples. That's what matters. And so for the Jewish believers who are going to always be more comfortable living in the traditions of the law, that's fine. It didn't matter. It isn't going to save them. What saves them is Jesus. So if that's what they have to do, that's okay. But we don't want that to become the only way that people have to experience Jesus, because that's the means, not the end. Paul understood what mattered was Jesus, and folks understanding and knowing and following Jesus. So whatever little things he had to do to make that happen, to allow that to happen, that he was going to do. Because shaving his head doesn't matter. It's not a big deal. Whatever. Purification vows, great. Whatever. Doesn't matter. What matters is Jesus. So let's be very careful, y'all, not to mistake our means for the end. What matters is folks knowing Jesus. So let's do all that we can do to make sure they know that. Even if the means by which they experience him may be a little different than ours, that's okay. Let's focus on the main thing, which is glorifying, worshiping, and following Jesus. So let's not mistake the means for the end. So good stuff for Paul in here today. So starting Monday, we're going to pick up on verse 27. So I hope you have a great weekend. Thanks for being with us. See ya. Bye.